So moving on to organized non-social offender. So obviously, we know what the opposite of that would be, but they tend to be, as you would guess, very organized. Sometimes even some of them to the point of almost OCD type of mentality, but very organized, very put together, and tend to be particular. And we'll get into different types, like when we talk about different types of for example, serial murderers. Some of them tend to be, tend to be narcissistic, tend to be think that they are better than other people. So, but that's not necessarily every single organized non-social offender. But like I said, this is kind of what you deal with. They are more likely, and this is probably something that will still be up there later, but they're more than likely going to, or more likely, I should say, to be married, as opposed to the disorganized who was not able to date because basically didn't have the social skills necessary to do so. Okay, so a lot of times they'll be married, maybe multiple times, but either way, typically will have some type of relationship. If they're not, everything else will be, in essence, either immaculate or at least well organized. Okay, all their stuff will be home. Also, something so the interesting thing is a lot of these people, this category, they even have different colors of cars, like specific colors of cars they will get tend to be darker colors. Not like you have to write that stuff down. That's just something else. They tend to get darker, more dominant colored cars. So instead of your lighter, like yellow or whatever type of car. So, all right. All right. I mentioned this just a little bit ago. May suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. So you will sometimes see that will manifest itself occasionally in the crime scene, that where things are ordered just the way they want it. But a lot of times, like I said, in their homes, in their behavior, they tend to be either OCD or borderline on that. If you ever interview them, they like to be in control. We'll talk about the specific interview techniques later, but they like to either be in or feel like they're in control and in the spotlight. So, okay. This is another key thing. This is probably the biggest aspect of when we talk about difference personality-wise between an organized and disorganized, is this concept here. So there's a difference between being asocial, which means you're basically not social by default or less by what other people choose to do. Non-social it's by choice. You are choosing, or they choose to not associate with others because they feel like they are better than other people. In essence, they're either narcissistic or they're psychopathic and don't care about the other people around them. But yeah, they tend to feel like they are smarter, which we'll find out they tend to be average or above average in IQ, but typically not a whole lot above average. But either way, they'll feel like they are better than everybody in basically every way. God's gift to the world. So, I know some people like that aren't organized non-social offenders, but there aren't any in this class that I'm aware of. So you're good. But yeah, that's like I said, that's the big thing. Tend to be narcissistic, not care about other people, or feel like people should do things for them. Okay. Good at manipulating, master manipulators. So, all right. Average intelligence, which is the interesting part, is they can get above average. But a lot of times we'll talk about what specific types would be more than likely to be above average. But for right now, the overall category, they tend to be at average. The difference is, how we said that with disorganized, their background or their personality itself has a tendency, especially their background, if they were abused or anything like that, makes them more likely to be, like it dampens their IQ and ability to express the IQ, even though they're already average or below that. Even their environment and their overall nature cause that to seem lower. This works almost the opposite way with the organized non-social, where they are so confident, so sure of themselves in their own mind, they know how to make themselves seem more intelligent. Okay, so like I said, they are good at manipulating. But they are, as you can read here, socially competent. So they're going to be the charismatic, or some of them are more charismatic, more outgoing, may even be leaders of different groups, like if there's a club in an area or organization like that. For example, you have people who've been members of, like a long time ago, there's business organizations called JCs. At one time was a Midwestern type of organization. There's been serial killers who were actually president of those organizations. So they'll be the ones who are okay with, if they want to be social with a group of friends. Say, like I said, they were married. They might be willing to set up things to where people come to their house, and they're either the life or the center of trying to plan a lot of things that way. Even though they do some not so nice things, they definitely are more likely to be socially competent, be involved with that kind of stuff. They like to have that feeling. So, all right. Another thing, tend to be from middle-class families. It's interesting. So a lot of your disorganized social offenders tend to be from, if you want to call it, poverty-stricken families, or at least those in the, I don't like to use the term lower class, but in essence, that where they are poor and have more difficulties that way, whereas a lot of the organized do come from middle-class families that still obviously have some problems of their own, but it's just their mentality kind of feeds into this concept of their overall personality. Okay? And they are adjusted well enough to actually operate and have good jobs, right? So, okay, moving on. Little to no trouble making friends. I already kind of pointed that out. They're going to be the type that, like I said, a little more outgoing, more likely to make friends. They may eventually manipulate friends to get what they want, but the point of it is they are socially adept. So, am I going too fast? Are we good? Okay, going too slow? All right. Like I've already pointed out, they can come across as charming, but they also are manipulative. So it's kind of like the person who knows what to say to get you to do what they want you to do. And there are different people out there. Like I said, I don't want to generalize all of it, but there are different organized non-social offenders who basically use people to get what they want. So that's all it really is. Those are more so like the sociopaths that will try to use someone, make them feel like they're your friend, whatever, just so that they can get you to give them or do something for them that they want. That's all it really is. So they know how to, like I said, manipulate emotions and things like that. And they're intelligent enough to do so. Difference, we talked about fathers. Fathers, unlike disorganized, where the fathers either weren't around or didn't have jobs, consistent jobs. It was organized. The fathers had jobs, and fathers, but the problem was there was inconsistent discipline, meaning either the fathers didn't discipline at all, or when they did discipline, it wasn't like a constant knowing where your boundaries are. It was one day you were fine, the next day you do the same thing, you're gonna get your ass beat. Okay, that's kind of the difference in it. Inconsistent discipline from a father. That makes sense. So, and by the way, on a side note, do anybody know what the single largest or most significant indicator of being involved in crime, being poor, or having a poor education, or in essence, also not being able to maintain employment? Anybody know what the single most or single largest influencer of that is? Anybody guess? Is it race or sex or anything? No. It's the presence of a father. So that influences everything in terms of statistically. So I just thought I'd throw it out there. There is no other, unfortunately, no other greater impact, single item that impacts violence or success than the presence of a father figure. Okay. And substituting, yeah, it doesn't work very well. So, all right. So, all right, moving on though. Here's a big thing. It wasn't pointed out specifically. It was listed like at the end. Remember when we talked about disorganized, we had that like, it looked like a white. It was I had scanned the pages from the criminal profiling book and put it on here. It showed the personality characteristics, showed the post-defense behaviors, and then how to interview, right? Well, the one thing I didn't point out in the lecture, but is on that list, was that those who are disorganized are less likely to abuse or use alcohol and drugs, whereas when you come across the organized non-social offender, they are more likely to drink heavily or use that to actually to get someone to be more cooperative, if you want to call it that. Same thing with drug usage. Ted Bundy smoked marijuana and drank a lot. Basically, there's that. Depending on how you categorize or choose to categorize Jeffrey Dahmer, he also used alcohol and drugs a lot to get his victims to be more cooperative, in essence, lower their guard. Okay, so those are two examples there. And some of them use them to escape some of the things they're doing. Some of it use it because that's where they go, whether it be to bars or other locations, or bring people back to their homes and use those items in order to get people in a state of mind where they are less able to stop them. Okay. Definitely masculine personality. Alpha, they want to be alphas. Some of them are, but either way, much more masculine personalities. So with disorganized, you have people who are, say it's mostly males, right? Not all of them are, just like not all organized are males. But they tend to have much more masculine personalities because the disorganized are the lack confidence, lack that, if you want to call it machismo, whatever. If you're a narcissistic person, you tend to not lack confidence, even if it's false or not. And since most of them are male, they have a much more masculine approach to things. Okay. They may be involved with sports, and some of them, if for example, they can be, if they're coaches, for example, there aren't a whole lot of them that do that in the past, but there have been. They may utilize that position to get some of their victims, or they own a business that is, say, construction type business. Also, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. Those who are who fit this personality, and like I say, are serial killer, serial rapist, whatever. Anybody know about the Golden State Killer? Whatever. Okay, the guy. Anybody know what he did for a living for a long time? Good.
He's a police officer.
Exactly. Okay. So these, and I'm not saying police officers are serial killers. I'm saying he fits into this mold of what he was. A lot of them will do jobs that are more considered to be more masculine, or at least have some sense of bravado to them, such as fire or police or something like that. Also, a lot of them are sociopaths. Don't accept criticism very well. So if they work for you, you'll notice that they may or may not listen to you, but they definitely don't like to be criticized. Okay, and sometimes this is actually it doesn't necessarily cause the urge to go commit crimes, but it definitely can be the if you want to call it the turning point or the breaking point, in essence, where if say one of them, since they're more likely to be married, a spouse will say something that somewhat critical of them, so they'll be irritated, and that will, instead of taking that out on their spouse, they actually take that rage, and then the next time they attack basically a stranger, that's what that is. It's part of what they're getting out is rage against, say, criticism, amongst other things, but that's something that can sometimes be the straw that breaks the camel's back of that defining moment where they decide to go out and commit their heinous crimes. So, all right, so be careful about who you criticize. All right, precipitating factors. Okay, what we're talking about here is kind of what I'm going to put. Actually, that's all. I thought I had another small bullet point on that, but what I was just describing there with like a spouse who criticized or in essence caused an argument, that is something that is key with organized non-social offenders. There are what we call precipitating factors. So these are the small things that will kind of trigger somebody. Could be criticism, could be an issue with a relationship, not just criticism, but something along those lines. Could be somewhere along the lines where they felt like they underperformed, or they were made to feel, in essence, lower than what they themselves thought they were. So, anything that kind of brought them back to reality they didn't like. But yeah, those are all precipitating factors of, like I said, struggling with a relationship, anything that takes away from that I'm the alpha or I'm the best mentality that they already have. Anything that attacks that can act as a precipitating factor. We'll get into more of the specific precipitating factors when we talk about what types instead of categories. When we start talking about specific types, we can get into precipitating factors for each of those. And it could be real, and it could just be something they think it is, right? It's all about perception. So, all right, another difference between disorganized. Remember how we said the disorganized, even if they say commit or they offend, and then a lot of times they'll only offend in areas close to where they live or work, the areas that they are more comfortable and in the surroundings. Whereas organized, they're okay with driving. It could be in their neighborhood, but they will actually sometimes fly or drive to different areas that would be hours away, commit their crimes, whether it be rape or murder, for example, and then go back home. Okay. So I'm trying to think. I'm not going to use Ted Bundy as much because his was a little different. His was more so moving to elude or evade the police. But then you have some that will go up and down highways, like you have the highway murder or highway killer that did exactly that, would go up and down. He picked specific interstates that he would work on, but in essence, go up and down that interstate, sometimes multiple, travel distance of multiple states, murder, and then be back on, I think at the time it was I-65 is the one, and he's not the only one that's ever done that. That's just the one that he was dubbed that name. So that's an example there. And trying to think anything specific. Some of them, such as there's some evidence that hasn't been proven or anything like that. Some evidence that H.H. Holmes, he traveled the world, and also the same time that the Jack Ripper murders were taking place, he happened to be in London. So maybe not the ones that we watched in that video the other day could be attributed to him, but remember they said there were something like 11 different murders in that time span of like 2 years. Some of them could have actually been H.H. Holmes. Same thing goes for, I wish I could remember the guy's name. He's another person they thought could have been Jack the Ripper, but he wasn't. But he was actually from Australia. But it shows, if you ever look at the different places he traveled to, there were murders in England when he was there. There were murders in Australia, like the locations, the cities that he was in, all while he was there in that period. And he eventually got caught murdering people in Australia and was executed. But either way, he was once again venturing away. Anywhere they were at, or anywhere they are, they would do that. So John Wayne Gacy would be one because he killed in Iowa and Illinois. Okay. All right, now I do get to go to post-offense behavior. So some differences here. I'm going to go ahead and put these. So once again, just like the disorganized, they will return to the scene, but it's not simply to relive it because it's safer to watch it or safer to think about it. It's more of a, I'm going to return to the crime scene because it's exciting and it adds to what I already did before. As in, like, it makes it bigger or whatever. When I see it again, or whenever I see the, say, police and everybody else there, it just makes that sensation a little stronger. Okay, it's kind of like I can show up and know, hey, I did this, and nobody else knows it. It's kind of like having that power, or I guess something else on that nobody else knows about. You have something that and know something that nobody else does, so it gives you a little edge. So, they don't have to, as you can see here, they can resist. Just depends on what they choose to do. It's not necessarily a type. It's just more so each person may be a little bit different that way. So they like to stay in the know about what is going on with those different crimes, about what the police are doing. And if in fact, there are times with the organized non-social offenders, if they feel like the police are ignoring some of their work, or not just police, but the police and media and everybody else isn't making a big enough deal about it, or they're not getting enough publicity over it, they will, sometimes they'll reoffend, but then the other thing they will do is they will start, sending in letters or whatever, just to try to get that information out there, get that circulating again, make it more, make it a bigger deal for them. Whether that be, like I said, letters, emails, just depends on how good they are with things, what they will send. BTK would send things to the police. Actually, a lot of them have in the past that are organized non-social offenders. So disorganized occasionally will, but the vast majority of them are organized non-social offenders that will, like I said, try to drum up the interest again, because they like being in the headlines. They like having that influence over people. Okay, they crave the spotlight in essence. Okay, and as you can see here, they tend to be passed over during interview processes because people automatically think of, hey, the person who did this is probably definitely going to stick out as being weird, or I'll be able to tell that there's something different about this person. But these people are so charismatic and have personality, they can throw you off. I mean, like, actually, a lot of them have been interviewed for, like, as witnesses, or they live in the area. Just kind of like when you cast your net out there as investigations and you are interviewing people, not because you think everybody's a suspect, but just because you're interviewing to get more information. They will a lot of times be interviewed, and no one will, they won't know till later that they, who they really were. They'll pass them off like, oh, that person's really helpful, or there's no way he or she could do that just because the personality doesn't seem strange enough. So yeah, let's see, there was Hanson was one of them that he was interviewed. That's the guy that used to hunt down people up in Alaska. You guys will learn about that when you read Mindhunter if you haven't already. But yeah, he would basically get people to go with him out into secluded places in Alaska and let them out, and then he'd hunt them down and shoot them. Because he got tired of hunting other animals and thought he might as well hunt the most, as they call it, and that's a term that became kind of well known with him, most dangerous prey, which is humans. So yeah, he would let them out, and then I forget how much of a time frame he gave them to get going, in essence, but needless to say, yeah, he would let them go out in the wilderness, and then he would eventually hunt them down and shoot them. So, yeah. Be careful if anybody offers you a trip to some secluded place and you don't know them very well. That's probably not a good idea. All right. So before we get on interviewing techniques, are we okay with the personality stuff? We want to have any questions about any of that? All right. So, interviewing techniques. Basically, it's the opposite of disorganized. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put all these up here just so you can see them. All right. You can, if they are, since they are typically more confident and like that assertive nature, and yeah, they will be much more assertive, much more charismatic, whatever. You can be direct with it. You don't have to worry about being super friendly. I mean, granted, sometimes it's nice to start off that way depending on the person, but this is the kind where you would actually want to confront them directly. If you have evidence against them, which I hope you do at that point in time, then you need to go ahead and put it out there, like, hey, we have this, basically putting the facts out there. And this is where it kind of comes in, why you'd want to be direct with them is because they do respect that aggressive or at least assertive type of mentality, because that's what they are used to, that's what they appreciate, so they will respect that in return. Okay, doesn't mean you treat them bad. It means that you simply you have to come across as being confident in what you're doing. Okay, as opposed to being empathetic, trying to understand. You have to show that you are basically at their level. That's what they, in terms of, in their minds, how intelligent, how good they are or think they are, you have to be able to match that. Okay. In a degree here, you have only admit to what they have to, unless, and this is something you get into later. This is usually after they're arrested or charged. If they feel like it will help them or make them look better, they may admit to other crimes on their own, whether they really did it or not. But a lot of times they will admit to more than what you're even aware of. Or, like I said, there was one of the people on your list. His last name is Little. He actually, at this point in time, he may very well be the most prolific serial killer, like ever, but especially in the U.S. Even though whenever he was arrested, it wasn't as high of a number, but since he's been arrested, he's been in prison, he has been able to confirm that he's got. They think right now it's close to. I think I'm right on this, close to 90. But then if all the ones that he's talked about are confirmed, it would be closer to like 200. So either way, he would be an interesting one and he's newer. I say newer, meaning like his murder spanned, what was it, like 25 or 30 years? But he's still, I think he's still alive. If not, he just died recently. But either way, he's one that, some of these we look at, they were, back in a lot of them were in the, say, 70s, 80s, early 90s. Some, for whatever reason, we had a higher number of them at the time. There are still serial killers out there. We just don't hear about them as often. So, yeah, so they think, a lot of times they think that at any given time there's probably at least 30 active serial killers in the U.S. We just don't hear or know about a lot of them yet. So, all right. So, like I said, only will admit to what they've, because they don't want to admit too much and obviously ruin their chance of being free. But if it's beyond that, then it becomes, okay, well, if I'm already going to be in prison, I might as well either admit it or just make up stuff. Okay? And interview them during the day, kind of like the opposite. They're perfectly fine in the middle of the day, love the attention, love the fact that it's lively out, so they're perfectly fine with that. So, anything you have questions about any of this stuff? So, like I said, same thing. I did the same thing with this as I did for the disorganized asocial offender. Let's see. I'm trying to think. This is one thing I may have mentioned in passing, but they like to hang out near, like, if they know that there are certain police that go to, say, a given gas station, or if you want to say donut shop, whatever. I don't know a whole lot of them do that right now. But either way, if there's a place where a lot of police like to hang out, this person sometimes will like to go and hang out with near the police because they want information like, hey, how's that investigation going for whatever case it is? Because they just enjoy basically hearing about themselves and knowing what the police know and going about it that way. And there was, besides the Golden Gate, our Golden State Killer, we also had Ken Bianchi, who was he was a security guard. I don't think he had made it to be a police officer yet. If he hadn't been one for very long. But he was a security guard and was a serial murderer. All right. Let's see. Here's another thing. And I don't know why I didn't put this in the other stuff, but it is important to write down. So these two things you may want to go ahead and write down in your notes. So I apologize for not having that in my post event. I'm not sure why I didn't. But anyway, they are more likely, you know how we said that the disorganized will just kind of like be done with the whatever the crime, whether it be say murder or rape, and they'll just get out, right? Okay. Well, with organized, they will plan ahead and think, okay, maybe I'm going to move the body to a dump site, or maybe I am going to cut it up and dispose of it some other way. But they have a plan, right? So, like I said, you may be a hitman like Kuklinski, who was the Iceman. That's actually the movie or a movie that Professor Dolmitzer is in. He's not the Iceman in the movie. He's an attorney in the movie. Yes, he and his wife were in that movie. You should watch it sometime. Well, you guys think I'm full of shit. He really was. It's not a super long part, but he's there, all right? So I don't remember exactly how far into the movie it is, but whenever they are in court and Kuklinski is supposed to stand up and say something to the court, in essence, Professor Goldmanzer is an attorney that's at the table with him. So yeah, you're looking it up. That's fine. If you can find it, go for it. And I don't know if he's listed in the. I think it's the Iceman. If you look at, yeah, there's a couple different versions. That was his nickname. So there may be a couple different movies, and I don't know who the director was. Huh? The newest one, yeah.
Is he in the newest one, or is he in like the older one?
Are you trying to say he's old?
Well,
Yeah, you are. Okay, that's all right. But I do believe it was like 2012 or whatever. You will recognize the one actor still is in a fair number of movies, and I don't remember his name though. I mean, that does not help you, I'm sure. But maybe we'll look it up. You can keep looking it up while we're talking about it. But what I was going to say was that particular killer, though he was a hitman for the mafia, basically, he was also, a sociopath who not only did he kill people for money, but he also enjoyed the fact that he was killing people. But one of the things he ended up doing was getting rid of the body by dismemberment and some other stuff. So, like I said, they may move the body to a dump site. They may dispose of the body. Like I said, sometimes they put it out there, different bodies, like they'll put them on, I say on display, like they may move the body to where people will see it, like they know someone will come across and see it. Especially, and this is more so with the Yorkshire Strangler, Yorkshire, that's the Suffolk Strangler, Yorkshire Ripper in England. He had a couple murders where it took longer than what he expected for people to find him, so he started to put them to where closer to where more people would travel on a regular basis so that people would find him easier. So, yeah. So anytime you get body movement, anytime you get someone who moves the body, manipulates the scene kind of like that, that's going to be your organized non-social offender. Disorganized just gets out of town because, yeah, that's just their personality. So I apologize for not having that in there earlier. I'm not sure why I forgot to do that. So anyway, anything else you want to ask about any of those things, or any luck in finding it yet?
it shows it on here, but I can't find it where in this whole list that he's at.
Oh. He probably won't be like super high on the list. I mean, for him, it was a non-speaking part. You knew about his other movie though, right?
My mom's in a movie.
What movie is that?
League of Their Own.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's she? What was he
He's
doing?
just an extra in the crowd.
Yeah. But yeah, he was actually in another movie here. What was it like 5 years ago? So yeah, he's a movie star.